Hey guys, what is up? You're watching Super Nintendo Collection Quest, the monthly video where I go over my recent Super Nintendo pickups. I play through them a little bit, do a little review, and see if it's a game I'd like to come back to. As a kid, I loved my NES, but when I got my Super Nintendo, that was it. Great graphics, sound, and gameplay. I was hooked. Some of my fondest gaming memories are from playing some of the greatest RPG, adventure, action platformer, and multiplayer games on the SNES. It's my goal to own every North American Super Nintendo game released, so follow me on my quest to Super Nintendo completion. So this month I picked up number 689 in my collection, War 3010. War 3010 is a turn-based strategy game similar to War 2410, but this game takes place in space rather than on land. To resume your progress, there is a password system, so no battery saves. Unfortunately, there isn't much depth to the gameplay. It was probably fine for the time, since there wasn't a ton of selection when it came to turn-based strategy games in space on the Super Nintendo. So unless you have some nostalgia for this particular game, I'd probably skip it. I don't think I'm going to come back to this one unless I have a good reason to. Number 690, TKO Super Championship Boxing. TKO Super Championship Boxing plays out from a side view of the action. Now, my favorite boxing on the system is, of course, Super Punch-Out. It's hard to get much better than that, but I guess for a more serious boxing game, this one has some potential. First of all, I really like that you can train your stats to get better as you progress through the championship, and there is a password system so you can resume your progress. There is a two-player mode, but you might as well just play a fighting game if you want to do versus. However, it was nice of them to include that because back then, especially as kids, these games were pricey. There are only 8 boxers in the game, so the championship is kind of short, especially after you take into consideration one of those boxers is you. They could have easily added more boxers to the game because the player sprites have only subtle differences anyway, and most are just reused with palette swaps. So it's an alright game, but it's fairly short. There are a few different difficulty levels to play with, but overall, not a lot of gameplay here. Which is too bad because it is kind of fun. Number 691, The Simpsons Bart's Nightmare. In The Simpsons Bart's Nightmare, you play as Bart. While doing his homework, he dozes off. And here is where all the gameplay actually happens, in a nightmare. So there are a ton of weird things coming after you to avoid, but the main goal is to find all of the pages of your homework. Once you find one of the pages, jump on top of it to play a minigame of sorts. Then complete the minigame to capture that page of homework. Whether you lose all your lives or you complete everything, you'll wake up and your grade will be posted on the fridge. Your grade will depend on how many pages of homework you captured in your nightmares or how many mini games you were able to complete. It sounds alright in theory, but in reality, the gameplay ends up suffering since the developers diluted their resources over a variety of smaller games rather than just focusing on one core game mechanic. And the nightmare aspect ends up just seeming like an excuse for the developers to not have to explain very much about what is going on and why none of it makes any sense. There are, however, references to various Simpsons episodes and characters, so if you are a super fan, you might appreciate it enough to suffer through the gameplay. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to recommend this one. Number 692, Indiana Jones's Greatest Adventures. Indiana Jones's Greatest Adventures is actually a pretty good platformer. It takes the first 3 movies and combines them all into one game. The graphics look great for the Super Nintendo. Play control is pretty good, though it can take a little getting used to at first. There's lots of different levels to play through, and occasionally you will get a password so you can resume your progress. At the beginning of each level, you will start with only your fists, not even a whip. For some reason, weapons don't carry over between levels either, and when you die, you'll lose all your weapons too. So if you hit a checkpoint before you die, you'll need to figure out where the nearest whip is at. Also, if you manage to find a gun, you do have unlimited shots with that. As far as moves go, you can do a Tarzan swing maneuver when you are carrying your whip, and you'll have a sliding roll move to squeeze through tight gaps, and certain objects can be pushed and used as platforms if you need to reach something higher up. Also, many of the levels are pretty open and offer a bit of exploration. So this is definitely a game I recommend. I'll be coming back to this at some point to play through it. Number 693, Micro Machines. Micro Machines is a top-down racer, and you can play with up to 4 players simultaneously with a multi-tap adapter. Of course, you can also play against the computer opponents as well. Micro Machines are, of course, the little miniature toy vehicles, even smaller than Hot Wheels, so the levels are all designed like homemade tracks around your house. Like the kitchen table, where you'll have bits of cereal that make out the edges of the track, and there's little spills of honey or juice to watch out for. Or you might be racing in the miniature boats around a bathtub track. It's actually a pretty fun racer. The only problem is you won't really know which turns are coming up the first time playing, so you'll need to memorize the track. I really wish that they had a mini-map in the corner, or that they would at least call out the turns like in certain rally games. I really like how the multiplayer mode works though. Rather than splitting the screen up, it's actually kind of a different mode of playing. They have a point system, and whoever falls behind gets eliminated until there's 1 car left. That person gets awarded a point, and you'll all respawn at that position and continue the race. Whoever ends up with the most points wins. It's a very clever way of doing it without split screen, and it gives everyone a fair chance to catch up. And finally, number 694, Mr. Nuts. Oh man, Mr. Nuts. It's a platformer that wasn't super popular from what I remember. At least I never knew anyone that played it back in the day, but it looks really good. It can be a little tricky though. The levels are pretty open, and there's a bunch of coins to collect on each level. Once you've collected them, you don't need to go back and pick them up again, even after you've died. And then at the end of the area, you'll see your coin total and a percentage. So if you're into that, you can try to collect them all. But already near the beginning, I was a little surprised because I came to what I suspected would be the end of this area, only there was a sign pointing me back to where I came from. Apparently, I need to do this platforming area up here, which I assumed was just for extra goodies and secrets, but it's not. So the game can be a little unconventional as far as level design, but there's no time limit. So really the trick to this game is taking your time as you go through the levels. Some of the bosses in this game have some really funny and unique designs too. And what is this? Some level designer put 2 nuts at the base of this giant mushroom. They knew what they were doing. This is a family-friendly game. Come on, get your head out of the gutter. I love the backgrounds in this game too. I really want to come back and finish this one, but there is no password system or saves, so you'll either have to do it all in one go or use some type of save states. Alright guys, so that's going to do it. I picked up 6 new games for my North American Super Nintendo collection, and I have just 29 more to go. Now, lately I've been playing a lot of indie games on various systems like the Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation 4 and Xbox. I've been having so much fun. I've been so impressed with what indie developers have been coming up with lately. It reminds me of like these games that I play on the Super Nintendo. There's so many great developers that are making great sprite art, 2D games that just are amazing. Like one of my favorites right now is Crosscode. I've been playing that so much. It's such a great game. It reminds me of just an epic Super Nintendo role-playing game. I even made a whole video on it because I just love this game so much. I ordered the physical version too. I'm still waiting for that to come in the mail. And yeah, if you're not aware, there is a physical version available from Strictly Limited Games for the Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation 4. But right now I'm playing the digital version. So much fun. Such a great game. Such a big role-playing game. Alright guys, well thanks for watching, and until next time, I will see you later.